Okay, as you see, I have laid down some paper because this is a messy project if you're working with the casting resin. The most important thing about when you're using this two-part casting resin is that you measure it accordingly. So you want to have equal parts. So I like to use these little disposable cups because they have the, the little lines on them here that I can use as a measurement. And then I like to use one of these clear cups and just a tongue depressor because when you're mixing it, you want to mix it really well, and you're going to want to scrape the sides. So you can use anything with smooth sides, any kind of, spatula, something like that you can really get in there and mix it good with. And you can also use any kind of, measuring cup. Like I've got these great little cups that I bought at Aldi that I love, but I love them so much, I don't want to ruin them doing this project. So I prefer to use something that can just be tossed in the trash because this stuff, as you can see, I've had this bottle for a while. It's kind of old and sticky and messy, and I don't want to get that on anything that I really care about. This stuff does yellow over time. When I purchased these, this was just a barely tan yellow, but I've had them for a while. So when you purchase it at the store, it may look a little bit different, but it works just fine. So I have measured them right, each of the two parts of the casting resin up to the line, so I know I have the equal amounts, and then I'm going to pour them both into my cup here. It's very important that you get all of it out. You want an equal mix, and this stuff is thick, and that is where the tongue depressor really helps. Like I said, if you have an old spatula or an old kind of flexible knife, something like that you want to use, anything where you can really scrape the sides, that's the most important thing to keep in mind. So as you can see, I poured this one out. There's still quite a lot in there, so we're just going to help it out. I dripped a little on the table. If you're off by a smidge, that's not that big of a deal. But if you are off by a considerable amount in the measurement, it will not harden up properly, and you'll end up with a tacky surface. So this is the most important part of the process when you're working with the two-part casting resin. And then you want to mix it really, really well. This is not something I would let a child do by themselves. These are chemicals, and you can do this with a child. Often I do them with the children. I let them decorate the inside of the magnets, and then I will do this stage. Once you have it really good and mixed, there's going to be a lot of bubbles in there, as you can see. You want to really scrape the sides, make sure you've got a good mixture, and we're good to go. Now all we have to do is just carefully pour this into each magnet, just a drip. Let it spread out towards the edges. Try not to overflow. If you get it, over the edges onto the paper, it may end up sticking to the paper, and you'll have to peel it off of the paper. So as you can see, this is a pretty messy way to do it, but very cost effective, especially if you want to do a couple hundred magnets. What I do is I'll put them on a cookie sheet, I'll line it with newspaper or whatever in rows, and I just go down the rows, and fill them up. And I do, like I said, it's messy. You'll end up with some bits and pieces like this. After I do the first round, I usually pick them up and move them to another area so they're not sitting in a puddle of resin, because this resin is going to dry and it is going to harden, and I don't want my magnet sitting in that. If there's a little bit of paper stuck to the back, that's not a big deal. Now, this Modge Podge here, which I'll put links to both the casting resin and the Modge Podge down in the comments. This stuff is wonderful. It does the exact same thing. It's one piece. It's got a nice fine point, and literally all you have to do is squeeze it in, and that's it. Piece of cake. It's a lot more expensive, but you can either choose to charge more for a magnet. You could charge for $2 for a magnet to cover the cost, or B, just make a small batch if you're doing it for gifts or whatever. This stuff, I cannot say that it's not worth paying for the convenience. You can see how much easier it is, how much cleaner it is. And when it comes to the drying process, it's exactly the same. They're both going to need to dry for 24 hours. These ones sometimes get a little bubbles in them. The bubbles will usually rise to the surface and dissipate. Sometimes the little pictures will float up, and in that case what I usually do is I have a toothpick and I'll take it and I'll just poke it back down to the bottom and try to burp out that little bit of air that's underneath the cardstock in there. But anyways, all you have to do at this point is let them sit for 24 hours, and then we'll come back and I'll show you what they look like when they're dry. Alright guys, it's been 24 hours and these are looking super awesome. They're nice and shiny and crisp looking. I had a couple that I used the Modge Podge with that came out a little cloudy that I won't be able to sell, but like I said, you know, for the most part, you're always going to have a few that are like that. Looking over this, I'd say there's probably about somewhere around 10 that look like they didn't come out quite right or settle quite right, like this one, which is a bummer because I love this image. For some reason you can see it settled a little off. Again, it just happens, you know. So anyway, overall I got 150 magnets out of the whole deal. 35 of those I did with the Modge Podge. Which, you know, I love the Modge Podge because it's super convenient. It's not messy, you know, but again, we got a couple cloudy ones out of it, so it wasn't 100% foolproof. Out of the two-part casting resin, I got about 115 magnets. So I paid $6.50 for the Modge Podge, and I got 35 magnets out of that. I got 115 magnets out of the casting resin, and I did a little math. After I had used my 40% off coupon to buy that resin, it cost me somewhere about $16. I used about a quarter of it to make these magnets. So roughly $4.50 is what I spent in casting resin to make 115 magnets. So that's a much better deal than using the Modge Podge, but it's all up to you. You know, you can pay extra for convenience, or, you know, if you're selling what you sew and you're a professional crafter like me and you're really worried about your bottom line, the two-part casting resin is definitely a much better value, especially considering the fact that, you know, a couple of the Modge Podge ones did end up coming out cloudy, which is a bummer. I really liked this one, Be Happy. I was hoping it would come out good, but, you know, that's the way it is. But some of them came out really beautiful and nice and bright and colorful, like this one that says love, and I had some good like Newcastle caps that really made the color pop. I've had this black Founders cap, and I put this cool kind of little Victorian thing in there, and it looks awesome. There was like a cool pinup chick that I put into an orange cap, and she came out looking really good. Oh, and you gotta love this one. Look, the vintage one in the orange cap. How cute is that? So anyways, the only other thing I should mention is about halfway through the drying process, I came in here and I just picked them up and moved them around to try and make sure they weren't stuck down to the parchment paper too bad. Yeah, and I do recommend parchment paper, wax paper, or freezer paper if you have it, just because during that stage when you know, pull them up to make sure the resin's not stuck down, because it's waxier, it's less likely to stick. If it's newspaper, sometimes it'll, you know, get stuck to the bottom. You may have to peel it off, or if you can't peel it off, it's not a big deal. You just cover it up with a magnet anyway. Nobody's looking at the back of their magnets. So sometimes you'll end up with a little bit of extra resin overpour like that. You can, very often you can just peel it off or snap it off. Anyways, these look really good. I'm super happy with them. So, you know, the only thing left to do is glue on a little button magnet. And like I said, I like Loctite. It works really great. You only need just the tiniest little, just the littlest bit, you know, and pop it on there, and it dries super fast. And the nice thing is, you know, the magnet just sticks to the bottle cap. But when you let them dry them on a surface that's not metal. If I had put it back on my cookie sheet and then I'd gone to pick it up later to see if it was dry, the magnet might stick to the cookie sheet and you know, pull the bottle cap off of the glue if it's not dry all the way. So anyway, this is one of my favorite craft projects to make. If I sell all of these, that's 150 bucks that I made in my booth, and it took me, you know, less than an hour to pour all these, aside from, you know, letting it sit for a day. You know, they're a great project to add a little fun, a little character to your booth. And you could do all kinds of things. I mean, you could print out on your home printer if you wanted to do like Black Lives Matter, or, you know, you could print out Christian, like little Christian phrases, pieces, or if you're like, I'm going to be working the dog mart, I might print out some, you know, little dog oriented kind of things, you know, stuff like that, and have another pile of them that are like really specific to the craft show I'm working. So the sky's the limit with this kind of project, and I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. All of the supplies I used will be in the description, and if you are a new viewer, please subscribe. I always have lots of fun videos, and if you are an old viewer, thanks so much for tuning in again, and I hope to see you soon. Take care.